It was just a man, his old dog, and a peaceful Sunday walk. But when he stood between a wounded cougar and armed strangers, everything flipped. What happened next will leave you questioning who the real animals were. I wasn't trying to be a hero that Sunday. I just wanted a break from the world. Bills, politics, traffic, people who can't park straight, all of it. So I did what I always do when the noise gets too loud. I grabbed Ranger, my old mutt with the loyalty of a Marine and the ears of a radar dish, and headed for the woods. Nothing fancy, just a walk. The trail behind my house cuts through the woods like a polite suggestion, not a proper road. Birds chirped like they hadn't paid rent in years. Sun filtering through the trees. The kind of morning that makes you think, maybe this planet isn't a complete disaster. Ranger sniffed everything like it owed him an explanation. I let him off leash. He earned it. This dog has better instincts than most people I know. And smarter, too. There were days I'd swear he could smell a lie. Then I saw it. A little tin bowl next to a tree stump, half filled with rainwater. A Ziploc bag of old kibble tucked underneath. Someone had left it for the strays. Not much, but it meant something. So I topped off the water from my bottle, dumped in some of our kibble, and placed it neatly like it was Sunday dinner. Some good folks still out there, huh, Ranger? He wagged his tail. 5 minutes later, I wished we'd turned around. We'd barely made it past the next bend when Ranger stopped cold, stiff, ears up. A low growl rumbled in his throat like a warning from the gut. I followed his eyes into the underbrush. First, I thought it was a deer. Then my heart tried to crawl out of my chest. A cougar, limping, and not alone. Behind her, a cub, trembling, ribs showing, barely keeping up. The mother's paw dragged with every step, but her eyes locked onto us like we were the last thing she trusted on this planet. And I swear to you, she didn't growl. She didn't hiss. She just looked like she was begging. Now, before you call me soft, let me tell you something. I've seen more cruelty than kindness lately. And when a wounded wild animal stares you down without an ounce of aggression, something inside you wakes up. But before I could act, the air snapped, a twig, a crunch. Then came the men. 3 of them. Camo gear, rifles, and that dead-eyed look people get when they've forgotten what empathy feels like. The kind of guys who'd punch a vending machine if it gave them the wrong soda. The one in front raised his rifle like it was an extension of his ego. "Back off," he barked. "This one's ours." "Yours?" I said, stepping in front of Ranger. "It's a mother and her cub." He snorted. "Exactly. 2 for 1. My blood went cold. "She's injured," I said. "You can't be serious." "She won't make it anyway." Another one shrugged, like he was talking about a broken lawnmower. Then the third guy, the quiet one, said something I'll never forget. "Don't worry. We're doing nature a favor." Nature a favor. That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with hunters. I was dealing with monsters in cargo pants. They started circling, trying to get a clean shot. Ranger bared his teeth. The cub whimpered, and the mother didn't move. She just stood there, shielding her baby. I had no weapon, no plan. Just a backpack full of dog treats and a voice that suddenly didn't feel loud enough. Still, I stepped forward and raised my hand. "Put the guns down," I said, trying to sound firm. "This is illegal, protected species. You want jail time?" They laughed. "Buddy," said the leader, "who's gonna report us?" "You?" He raised the barrel. And I did the only thing I could. I stepped in front of the cougar. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss what unfolded after this moment, because it only gets worse from here. Stay with me. I've made bad decisions in my life. Got married too young. Invested in that eco-grill startup that never grilled anything. But stepping between a wounded cougar and 3 armed men, that one might have topped the list. Except it didn't feel like a mistake. Not when I saw how that mother cougar stood her ground. Not when I saw how that cub clung to her like she was the last piece of solid earth in a world sliding off the rails, and not when the guy with the biggest gun flinched. Yeah, flinched. I don't know if it was the way I stood, or maybe it was Ranger, who had moved to my side, teeth bared, hackles up, growling like a storm was coming. Whatever it was, that man hesitated, and in that breath of hesitation, the whole scene changed. "Get out of the way," the leader snapped. "No," I said. Just that. No speech, no hero pose, just a plain, solid number. His fingers twitched on the trigger. That's when the quiet one, the guy in the back, the one who hadn't said a word since stepping onto the trail, suddenly lowered his rifle. "Mike," he said, his voice tight, "this ain't right." Mike whipped around. "What? I'm not shooting an animal in front of a guy and his dog. This is bad optics, man." "Optics?" Mike barked. "You think anyone out here's got a camera?" Ranger growled louder. The cougar, still bleeding from her paw, didn't move, but her eyes followed everything. Sharp, calculating. I noticed it too. The way the cub kept inching toward her belly. He was trying to nurse. He wasn't just scared. He was starving. Mike's second man muttered something under his breath and backed away. The tension cracked. You could feel it, like a stretched cable suddenly losing slack. But Mike, oh no, he wasn't done. "Fine," he hissed. "You all want to act noble? Then you deal with the cat." Then he turned the gun, not on her but on me. Let me tell you something. It's one thing to see a gun in a movie. It's another thing entirely to see it inches from your chest, held by a man who thinks rules don't apply to him. I didn't blink. Couldn't. My brain was screaming, but my body was too stubborn to move. And then Ranger lunged, not at Mike, not at the cougar, at me. He pushed me sideways, hard enough to knock me into a tree trunk, just as Mike's finger twitched. The shot went wild, cracked through the silence and sent a murder of crows blasting out of the trees. The cougar bolted. The cub scrambled after her. And Ranger? Ranger was still standing. He stared Mike down like he'd just seen into the man's soul and wasn't impressed. That's when it all unraveled. The second man ran. The quiet one followed. Mike stood alone now, his ego bleeding faster than the cougar's paw. He aimed again, but his hands shook. "Don't be stupid," I said, brushing pine needles off my sleeve. "You already fired once. Someone heard that." He hesitated. "You pull that trigger again," I added. "You better hope it's not pointed at something that can bite back." And then, like a man realizing the bar tab's too high and the car's been towed, he dropped the gun. Right there, on the trail, and ran. Just turned and ran. For a moment, it was quiet again. The birds hadn't come back. The wind had stopped. All that was left was Ranger, panting beside me, and a trail of blood leading into the woods. I didn't think. I grabbed the discarded rifle and kicked it into the bushes. Then I looked at Ranger. "She's hurt bad." He didn't bark, just stared into the woods. I don't know what made me do it. Instinct, guilt, stubbornness. But I followed that blood trail, deeper into the trees. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for. It's right ahead. You can't stop here. Stay with me. Because what happened next flipped everything upside down. I don't know what came over me, but once I saw that blood trail, I couldn't just walk away. Some people go to church for redemption. Me? I followed a wounded cougar into the woods. Ranger stayed close, not pulling ahead, not lagging behind, just moving with me like we were tethered by something deeper than a leash. The tracks weren't hard to follow. Broken brush, smeared paw prints, drops of blood darkening the moss. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have gear. I had a Swiss Army knife, half a protein bar, and a dog who looked at me like, "This is the worst idea you've had, and I'm still here." We finally spotted her in a low ravine, half hidden under a fallen tree. The cub curled into her side, mewling. She was breathing heavy, her leg bent at a bad angle, blood crusted over a gash that could have come from a trap or barbed wire. Either way, she wasn't going anywhere, and she knew it. I stayed still, no sudden moves, no eye contact. I crouched, just outside striking distance, and spoke low, not because she'd understand me, but because I needed to hear myself be calm. "I'm not here to hurt you," I said. "Trust me, lady, I barely know what I'm doing." She didn't growl, she didn't run, she just watched. And somehow, that was worse, because it meant she'd given up, and I've seen that look before, on people, on myself. I inched closer, reaching into my backpack, pulled out my shirt, tore a strip, then another. It wasn't clean, but it was all I had. I moved like I was defusing a bomb. Ranger stayed planted above the ravine, alert but still. When I touched her leg, she flinched, but didn't strike. Just a low, guttural breath, like pain was the price she'd already accepted. I wrapped the wound as tight and careful as I could, stopped the bleeding. She licked the cub's ear once and lay back. That's when I heard it. Engines, multiple, closing in. I scrambled up the ridge, Ranger beside me. Through the trees, I saw headlights bouncing. Not the guys from earlier, these were official. Forestry vehicles, rangers. 2 trucks stopped. Men in uniform stepped out. Radios crackled. One of them locked eyes with me. "You the one who called this in?" he asked. "No," I said. "But you're late." He blinked. "We got a tip about illegal hunting in the area. Heard a gunshot." "Yeah, you did," I said, jerking a thumb behind me. 3 of them. One pulled a gun on me, then ran like a raccoon in a spotlight. The cougar's wounded. She's got a cub. She needs help now." They moved fast. Finally, someone did. They called in wildlife medics, a drone team. Even had a vet with tranquilizers. They worked in silence and coordination, like a reverse SWAT team. Saving instead of destroying. And the cougar? She didn't fight it. She let them load her into a cage, but not before licking the side of my boot. Just once. Soft, like a whisper of thanks you don't quite believe happened. I watched her go. It wasn't some big Hollywood moment. There were no reporters, no speeches, just me, my dog, and a sense that for once I hadn't just witnessed injustice, I had shoved back. The lead ranger came over. "You're lucky," he said. "People don't usually walk out of something like that." I looked at Ranger. "Guess I've got good backup." They offered me a ride back, but I declined. I needed to walk, process, let the forest take some of the adrenaline off me. Ranger seemed to agree. As we stepped back onto the trail, I saw that same tin bowl I'd filled earlier, still there, untouched, but not unnoticed. That walk changed everything. Not because it ended perfectly, but because someone stood up when it mattered. Sometimes that's all the wild needs from us, and all we need from ourselves.